Good evening, America. This is Jeff Desk. I need to begin with a correction. We hold ourselves to high standards of precision on this program, but it came to our attention rather late that the visual behind me is outdated. It still includes the East Wing of the White House. Let me point it out for clarity. Right here, that section represented the East Wing. Today, that area is simply an empty space, a void adjacent to the main building. Over on this side stands the West Wing, which remains intact based on the latest information available, though I'm not on site to confirm it personally at this moment. In the background, you'll see the Empire State Building depicted, and farther off, there's Los Angeles International Airport. We also have weather patterns shifting, a cold front approaching from the Ohio region, so viewers in affected areas should prepare accordingly and reach for warmer layers. The items I outlined earlier in the broadcast represent only a portion of the week's extraordinary developments that challenge established norms. Our focus tonight centers on the concept of impunity. How is it possible for a president to authorize the removal of the East Wing structure? Does such an action fall within legal boundaries? What source of power enables these kinds of decisions? An important shift is taking place inside the Republican Party at present, one that major news outlets appear to be overlooking entirely. They are not giving this matter the attention or context it warrants. The development carries genuine weight and holds the potential to alter the course of political alignments significantly, yet traditional media coverage has not captured its true dimensions. Allow me to lay out the current dynamics involving Republican leadership and the possible implications for former President Trump's future agenda. Joining us for perspective are several knowledgeable voices. Peter Baker, who serves as the chief White House correspondent for the New York Times. Susan Glasser, a staff writer with The New Yorker. David Ignatius, the foreign affairs columnist at The Washington Post. And Tolu Olanipa, a staff writer at The Atlantic. If those on the far left gain control, they will dismantle our economic foundation and jeopardize the nation's long-term prospects. We now understand the direction that destructive force was intended to take. The White House is often described as the people's residence. Citizens elect someone to occupy it for a 4-year term. At this point, no formal declaration or open alert has emerged from Republican leadership circles. What exists instead is a growing undercurrent of dissatisfaction, the sort that accumulates after repeated electoral setbacks in races that seemed winnable. This tension is evident in battleground regions, where backing for the party is eroding rapidly and affiliates are departing quietly. A clear illustration came in a recent special congressional election in Florida's 7th District. A Democrat secured the victory in what had long been viewed as a reliably Republican stronghold. In the prior cycle, Republicans claimed it by a margin of 20 points. This time, the seat changed hands, reflecting a shift of roughly 27 points overall. Such a dramatic movement cannot be dismissed as merely a localized anomaly. Moreover, this marks the 6th consecutive special election defeat for Republicans, a consistent trend appearing across various locations and conditions nationwide. Yet the party continues to come up short against Democratic opponents in these contests. Each loss amplifies the signal to Republican officials. Fundamental problems persist. The environment has grown so unfavorable that winnable races are slipping away, and at the core of this challenge stands Donald Trump. The data from Pennsylvania looks even more concerning than Florida's. An Emerson survey indicates that Trump lags behind a generic Democratic opponent by 12 points in that state. Pennsylvania remains a pivotal swing territory, one he carried in 2016, so expectations would normally place it in the competitive column. Instead, he trails substantially against virtually any candidate bearing a Democratic label. That level of resistance underscores how damaging his position has become. When Republican figures examine these troubling figures, observe Florida's transformation from red to blue, and tally 6 straight special election setbacks, conversations begin, not in open forums or official channels, but in private, low-key exchanges. Discussions now frequently turn to the road ahead and the risk that Trump could pull the entire party toward defeat in 2026. Digging deeper reveals specific sources of irritation. One major point involves backlash against tariffs. The former president's prominent trade approach has lost favor, eroding backing even among core supporters. Another concerns the ongoing turmoil in Venezuela. The administration's approach there has sown confusion and alienated potential voters. We must also address reports of resistance within the armed forces. Active duty personnel have at times declined to carry out directives from the top, representing a clear fracture in command structure. Additionally, developments at Fox News cannot be ignored. The network, long positioned as a reliable platform for Trump, has experienced prominent exits and controversies, including the release of recorded materials and instances of evidence handling concerns. These elements are gradually undermining credibility and driving away portions of his traditional audience. These represent substantial obstacles, far beyond minor setbacks, that rhetoric alone can resolve. They point to deeper operational and institutional difficulties affecting both Trump's political machinery and his governing apparatus. Republican leaders are addressing these matters discreetly, expressing concern for their own career trajectories. Should Trump continue to weigh down the party, evidenced by special election defeats, declining polls in critical states, they may need to create separation to ensure survival through the 2026 cycle. That tension forms the heart of the current story. To date, 31 members of the House Republican Conference have either declared their intent to retire or are widely anticipated to do so, a notable departure from Capitol Hill. What prompts this departure? They assess the current terrain and conclude that remaining linked to Trump makes re-election improbable in 2026. With his standing so weakened, stepping away becomes the practical choice as they pursue other opportunities. This pattern of exits delivers a strong indication to fellow Republicans. Confidence in prevailing under Trump's leadership has diminished markedly. It suggests the party faces the prospect of major setbacks in the upcoming midterms. When numerous incumbents opt out rather than seek another term, it reflects careful calculations. The political atmosphere feels too adverse, Trump's appeal too diminished, and alignment with him too costly to maintain. So, we find Republican officials grappling with mounting frustration while their colleagues evaluate their paths forward. The developments within the GOP are striking. Losses in special elections are not isolated incidents. They form a discernible trend. 6 consecutive defeats demand attention. The Florida 7th District outcome stands out. A Democrat prevailing in a seat that shifted 20 points toward Republicans, only the previous cycle represents an extraordinary 30-point reversal in a short span, something rarely seen. The election's timing added weight, occurring shortly after damaging information surfaced publicly, which appeared to discourage Republican participation. Privately, party officials expressed deep concern over Trump's viability in the current electoral environment. Their unease extends beyond a single contest. They recognize that repeated setbacks in key areas could reverberate into 2026 and further cycles. The recurring pattern proves difficult to discount, prompting earnest private deliberations. Notably absent are any explicit ultimatums or public proclamations from GOP figures. Communication occurs through understated cues and confidential discussions conveying apprehension. Though not framed as direct confrontation, the underlying strain is evident. They are evaluating whether continued allegiance to Trump aligns with strategic interests amid the prevailing conditions. This illustrates the speed with which political realities can shift. It resembles observing a contest in progress, with leaders adjusting positions to endure potential outcomes. Trump's declining favorability is undeniably complicating matters for Republican hopefuls. Historically, the incumbent party holds edges in special elections: resources, coordination, enthusiasm. Yet recent results show Republicans faltering despite those advantages, demonstrating how Trump's unpopularity overrides traditional strengths. Particularly troubling for party officials is Pennsylvania's outlook. As a classic battleground, it often decides national outcomes. One survey shows Trump down 12 points against a nameless Democratic alternative. A decisive margin, not a narrow contest. Closing such a deficit proves challenging in any cycle. Starting from that position in early 2026 raises serious questions about November prospects after additional media scrutiny, courtroom developments, and controversies accumulate. In response, Republican leaders engage in candid internal exchanges. Figures like House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Minority Leader John Thune confer on the ramifications for Trump's 2026 trajectory. These sessions focus on whether sustained endorsement remains advisable or if creating some separation offers better protection. The mood in those conversations is far from optimistic. They convey anxiety and efforts to devise safeguards for the party's future. Curiously, tariffs, once viewed as a galvanizing element, now appear to repel voters, including segments of the base. When a flagship policy drives people away rather than drawing them in, it signals misalignment. The Venezuela matter adds to the unease, with the administration's handling leaving voters uncertain about direction and eroding faith in decision-making on trade and international affairs. When core messages alienate rather than unite, reevaluation becomes essential. Numerous factors currently fuel apprehension regarding Trump's position. Participation among supporters has dropped as trust wanes, exacerbated by the Venezuela developments. Resistance from military quarters raises additional alarms. Ordinarily, service members execute orders from the commander-in-chief without hesitation, but instances of non-compliance indicate institutional strain. Maintaining armed forces alignment remains vital. Erosion there constitutes a major concern. On the media front, Fox News traditionally provided unwavering amplification for Trump, framing stories favorably. Now, however, departures and internal disagreements have weakened that relationship. Losing a primary outlet for unfiltered messaging hampers narrative control and voter reassurance. Footage depicting evidence mishandling carries particular impact. Visual proof prompts viewers to question motives. If nothing required concealment, such actions invite skepticism, further damaging perceptions, and reflected in declining approval figures. The most striking indicator, Trump's approval stands at 31%, marking a historic low, below previous out-of-office or controversy periods. Parties facing such disapproval typically suffer congressional losses. Republicans confront these realities and feel increasing pressure. The 31 announced or anticipated retirements speak volumes, individuals concluding that victory under current circumstances appears unattainable. With approval at that level, foregoing re-election campaigns makes rational sense. It broadcasts to others that prospects look dim. Beyond immediate elections, concerns extend further. Should Democrats secure House control and potentially a commanding majority, Republican influence could face prolonged challenges. For Trump personally, that scenario opens avenues for renewed impeachment proceedings, intensified probes, public hearings, measures that could complicate his circumstances considerably. Self-protection instincts have surfaced. Certain Republicans quietly assess whether loyalty to Trump justifies risking their positions. They ponder the wisdom of distancing themselves. These considerations generate quiet friction internally. Not overt demands, but meaningful dialogue about loyalty's price. Compounding matters are fundraising difficulties previously noted. Limited resources hinder competitive campaigning, and weakened super PAC operations limit countering Democratic efforts. Republicans currently navigate consecutive defeats, funding shortfalls, and eroding faith in leadership. What was anticipated as a favorable midterm landscape now appears headed towards serious difficulties, hence the private discussions and mounting strain. Examining these elements reveals their broader significance for the political environment and potential trajectories ahead. This goes beyond routine party matters. It involves forces that will influence 2026 and subsequent periods. The sequence of 6 special election defeats stands undeniable, not coincidence, but evidence of reduced Republican voter engagement. Low participation in these lower-profile races foreshadows challenges in higher turnout general contests. Florida's loss serves as an alert. A presumed safe seat falling indicates vulnerability nationwide. Competitive districts may tilt Democratic, while traditionally secure Republican areas could become contested. Substantial reversals may lie ahead. Pennsylvania polling heightens leadership anxiety. As a decisive swing state with 20 electoral votes, a 12-point deficit against a generic Democrat positions Democrats favorably for presidential outcomes. Leadership weighs options intensely, persist with Trump in hopes of reversal, or contemplate alternatives detached from his influence. This choice stirs division. Loyalists hold firm while others prioritize personal and party viability based on data. Tariffs illustrate policy disconnect. Even among supporters, the approach breeds skepticism over economic effects, diminishing confidence in judgment. Military discord similarly points to authority erosion. A nation requires unified command structures for effective operation. Such internal conflict weakens standing. The Fox News erosion matters deeply. Trump's rise relied heavily on that platform's reinforcement. With support fracturing amid departures and disputes, narrative dominance weakens, contributing to approval declines. Evidence destruction visuals intensify distrust. Viewers naturally inquire about hidden motives, reinforcing perceptions of opacity. Pressure within the GOP builds without formal statements. Retirements and private exchanges indicate strain. Trump faces difficult choices. Maintain course despite objections, risking further exits and division that worsen 2026 odds, or adjust approach to address concerns, potentially appearing reactive or uncertain, which could embolden opponents across the spectrum. Both paths carry drawbacks, marking a pivotal juncture. His hold on party infrastructure faces testing. Donald Trump has long commanded alignment within Republican ranks, yet with approval at 31% and 6 special election losses, strains emerge visibly. Pennsylvania's 12-point gap underscores waning sway. Democrats stand positioned for 2026 gains not through superior strategy alone, but via Trump's unpopularity dragging candidates downward. Data makes this evident. Party officials increasingly view him as a potential burden rather than asset. Internal shifts and pressures reflect heightened awareness of risks. Trump's response will determine outcomes. If retirements accelerate, polls deteriorate further, or new controversies arise, strain will intensify. Leadership may ultimately determine separation yields greater advantage than continued association. Should that occur, a profound division could emerge, staunch advocates versus doubters, with lasting effects on Republican fortunes in 2026. This moment merits close observation. Special election results, Pennsylvania surveys, military frictions, Fox departures, tariff resistance, all align in a consistent picture of eroding internal support. While not yet public or formalized, the tension grows unmistakably. We will continue monitoring these developments closely as they promise to define the path forward. This is Jeff Desk. Stay awake, America. We'll see you in the next one.